Yeah, I just want to say a quick hello to everybody and a big thank you to Kellogg Hubbard for running this internet from her end, because as most of you know, here at Milarepa, our internet is shaky at times. So thank you, Michelle. So yeah, and then I just wanted to say that all is well here at Milarepa Center. We're all doing well, and we're so excited to have Venerable Amy here tonight to do this talk. So I'm gonna just turn it right over to her, and so we can have time for questions and discussion. So thank you, Venerable, and thanks again, Michelle, and it's lovely to see you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much to the Kellogg Hubbard Library and Michelle and Dawn and Milarepa Center and all the people that made this possible. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for joining. It's great to see all of you. Let's talk about mindful self-compassion. And I find that we're not all in Vermont. A lot of people in Vermont have found Vermont, when I live there, it seems to be a pretty reasonable state, and they do things in a unique kind of healthier way, I think, compared to a lot of places I've lived. So, but we're not all living in Vermont right now. So what I'd like to do is just to bring us into this space. Let's just start with some brief reflection and setting that motivation and putting that intention in the right place. So take a moment and just center yourself in your body wherever you are, whether you're seated in a chair. If you are in a chair, you can absolutely meditate. Just have your feet straight down, flat on the floor or on a cushion on the floor, so you feel the grounding. And if you're seated in meditation fashion, legs crossed, perfect, no problem. Just feel that grounding with your seat, with your cushion. And allow yourself to lightly close your eyes as you begin to bring the gaze inward. And as you do this, slowly begin to deepen every inhalation and every exhalation. And as you do this, begin to scan your body for a minute or two and notice any places you're holding tension. Could be your forehead or your jaw, or your neck and shoulders, lower back and hips. And every time you inhale, bring in some space to those tight areas, helping them loosen up. And every time you exhale, imagine releasing that tension. And another technique you can use, I find deepening the breath in general helps to deal with any anxiety and any off-centered mental state. We just need to pause and allow ourselves to breathe properly. And as you do this as well, you may want to be inhaling something positive. Maybe you imagine inhaling hope into your system of body, mind. Maybe you're exhaling fear, letting go the negative. You can put it into your own words. Inhaling spaciousness, and imagine letting go of constriction as we exhale, letting go of rigidity. Maybe we're inhaling, allowing things to be the way they are. As we exhale, having things needing to be a certain way. Continue for a few breaths on your own. And as we hopefully have decreased a little bit of the negativity or off balance in our mind, from this place, reflect on why you showed up this evening. What's your purpose for being here right now? And is there a way to direct that purpose in a most meaningful way? What does that mean for you in a most meaningful way? So in the tradition I have been taught in, Tibetan tradition of Buddhism, what lends the most meaning is helping others as much as we're able. And if you reach a fully enlightened or fully awakened state as a Buddha, fully awakened being, that's your maximum potential. And then you're unlimited and fully empowered to help all living beings. So there's no more guessing. I wonder what I should say to this person. I wonder what I should do for this person. You know every moment, and you act from there. You respond from there. So if that interests you, feel free to include that in your motivation right now. And just take a moment. You're setting your mind in the right direction. Set that motivation for our time together, positive motivation, as well as for all the activities of the rest of your day. And please relax and slowly, when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. So one method, one technique I'd like to add in right now. I'm just going to layer a few things for you to consider. When you come out of a brief meditation or any type of meditation, what happens is when it ends, whether you are doing something with a meditation online or with an app, whether you're here listening to a guided meditation through your computer or something like a class like this, and there's a bell at the end or somebody says relax, So immediately the mind re-engages with this ordinary reality that you're in. And you jump right from the meditation right in, and you reach for your cup, or you get up, or we're jolted through a variety of activities right now that we're working with. I've been working quite a bit on just savoring, taking a break from in the transitions, meaning you finish the meditation ends, just pause for a moment before you re-engage. How's your mind? And can you notice anything bubbling up in your mind, for instance? Just observe, just 1 minute observe rather than immediately. So what I'm doing is building in, working with these transitions, ordinary everyday life transitions. And in those transitions, over and over, reestablishing my motivation. Over and over, checking, oh, am I keeping an open heart that I'm going to the grocery store now? Can I go to the grocery store? Actually, I'm about to leave the door, leave the house. I'm going to mindfully make sure I'm locking the door, mindfully going into my car. What's my motivation? So I'm not just blindly walking to the car, just let's bring the mindfulness in. What am I doing right now? I'm walking down the steps. And oh, I'm going to the grocery store. Can I do it in a more broad-hearted way, the grocery store? Can I think about bodhicitta, this enlightened attitude? Bodhicitta is a Sanskrit term for the enlightened attitude, the enlightened mind. And the essence of it is cherishing others more than myself. So can I go to the grocery store with that motivation? You know, and I'm just bringing it in. It drops a lot and you forget it immediately, okay? So again, maybe you have a little reminder where the phone is set on an alarm, or there's a little message on the dashboard of your car or on your refrigerator. I've talked about that before, but I'm really working with these transitions so that every time there's a transition, I'm getting out of my car. I've been working with this since COVID, since I've been grounded in Philadelphia, not traveling like I did, not racing through airports and running around like that. And somehow everything's slowed down, and I'm using the slowness to watch my mind. Use it, okay? People get freaked out. It's slow, I can't go out, I can't do my normal activities. Great. Change up the routine, but let's use it in a worthwhile, meaningful way. So I'm noticing that more and more, so that I have a trigger now as I enter the grocery store. I've got a trigger. Oh, wait, how am I entering the grocery store? I want to mindlessly just go in, oh, the strawberries are on sale, right? Or wait a minute, there's a lot of people in the grocery store. How do I want to be in the grocery store with them? You still do your shopping like anyone else. It doesn't have to take any bit longer, but a little bit more sensitivity to the people around. Oh, I see me and another guy are going for the cart at the same time. Okay, let him go first. There's one store that still has a line outside. People line up outside. So you see two people walking really quickly to get in. I let them go in front of me, right? Bodhicitta makes me happier. But you want to check. You get in line after them. How do you feel? I feel better than had I raced in front of them. I feel better. You have to check your own mind. So it's a really powerful time right now you're stepping into the shower. There's a transition. Shower. Okay. Can I have shower with a positive motivation? If you have just ordinary shower, no real positive energy in your mind. Ordinary shower doesn't leave seeds of that. Positive motivation for the shower. And you say, well, what's a positive motivation for the shower? Right? Well, you might be living with other people, so you don't want to offend them and smell. Okay? Even if you're living alone, basic hygiene is actually healthy for you. And basically, I want to do that. Why? So that I can remain healthy, so I can continue to live in a meaningful way in my community, with my friends, with my family, that I can contribute somehow in a positive way. So that's the purpose of me having a shower right now. Make sense? Possible? So just slowly using those transitions and what I've asked some people is, in the beginning of COVID, I don't know if this was your situation, but a lot of people started contacting me and I teach a lot online, but a lot of people started contacting me that they were getting very lazy. They had some bad habits that popped up in their fear and anxiety about this virus and this pandemic and how it was spreading. So they were home, and it was a little bit cool in the Northeast at that time. As you know, this was March. It was still cold. It's still winter in Vermont. And people were telling me that they were streaming and binge watching Netflix and like watching too much TV, like somehow because they weren't going to an office. They weren't doing their normal things. Everything was shut down, so they couldn't just go to the store and do what they were going to do. And they couldn't go see friends because we were advised not to. So out of this, everybody remained home. And then the likelihood for some people is it was a little too much screen watching. So they were binge watching, and they told me how guilty they felt, how lazy it made them feel. So then I said, notice after 5 hours, how do you feel? Right? And they started to say they felt lazy. They felt lazier. They also would eat too much during the watching of the bad things they would eat. So they're grabbing garbage food, lazier, not lying in a good position. Their back hurt, their neck hurt. They were zombied out. So you have to notice that to then say, I don't really want to walk around many days like that. You want to take a break and watch something shorter, fine to take a break, but you have to notice that, well, this really doesn't make me feel good. Why are you going to continue it then? But too much of it, it becomes a habit. So then you have to break the habit, which becomes difficult. So you just want to get real with yourself around that. I will make time for questions a little later. So I want to bring in, and there's somebody that does some really beautiful, couple people that do some beautiful, have written self-compassion books you may be familiar with. One of them is Kristen Neff, N-E-F-F. She's a psychologist. She also has a website, I think, with exercises and meditation. Another one is Christopher Germer, G-E-R-M-E-R. They've both written some really nice books on compassion and self-compassion, okay, which is so important. So we hear about compassion. We're pretty clear about that. Compassion is normally wishing others to be free of suffering. Wishing others to be free of suffering. So we all want that. That's pretty clear. Are we really practicing it? And what happens when you're a little snippy with someone and later you go home and you realize, or you had a face call with someone and you said the wrong thing, or you really realized you were typing and doing work the entire time they're talking to you, and you were missing half of what they said. And is that kind and compassionate for someone? Don't you like when people listen to you if you're there doing many things? So you kind of notice this and you go, that wasn't very compassionate. And later you feel bad about it and you want to wake up to more compassion. But what happens is if we don't start practicing with ourselves, practicing compassion with ourselves, self-compassion is okay. It's even okay on the Mahayana Buddhist path, okay? Self-compassion. What do I mean about that is if I'm not learning some basic techniques to take care of myself, then it's quite difficult for me to really extend that open heart to others. If I'm walking around with a really gunky attitude about myself, pounding myself, I never do anything right, I don't deserve to be loved, I don't deserve to have good things happen to me. So we've talked about this a lot, but just initial things. And so one of the things I'd say is when you also run into trouble in your life, a problem arises, okay? And I'm just kind of curious right now just to ask you, okay? If you care to speak, if you want to unmute your mic for a moment, when a problem arises, I'm just curious, what do you do generally? What are your coping mechanisms? Just put your hand up. Or if there's people I can't see, everyone's afraid to venture in there. What are some of your coping mechanisms? Linda?
I eat.
People eat, right?
I eat, I procrastinate, I worry.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Is she
am.
alone? Is she alone in any of these? No, she's not alone. Anyway, we talk about the virus, COVID-19, right? Is the name, what they name this virus, COVID-19. My neighbor, we came out after the first 2 months. Our neighbors ventured outside, like the first time in 2 months. This was in April. And we were at the edges of our driveways. And our driveways are close enough, but one of them, her grandchildren live on the other side of me. She's 3 houses down. So she was walking down the street and we kept distance. And I said, how are you doing? And she said, oh, it's really good to see you. And, we started just talking a little bit. And then she said, what's going on? And I said, oh, like everyone else, I've gained about 5 pounds. I made a joke. And she looked at me, she said, 5 pounds? She said, COVID-19, I've gained the entire 19. So we eat, people people procrastinate. I'll put it off because it's going to be the same tomorrow, the same thing tomorrow. We get lazy, we get, things like that. Absolutely. People worry, when will it be over? Will there be an effective vaccine? Will I be able to travel again? My sister's in England, so she's been dying to come in, she and her kids, to visit me. And she's just like, as soon as it's safe, I'm getting on the plane. But we're suddenly split by a boundary. And as you know, we're not all in the States here, but the people from the States right now, we're the pariahs of the world. Nobody wants us across their borders. I think there's 7 countries that are allowing us to enter, right? And they're not really countries that I'm interested in visiting right now. So my sister's very worried about us being separated like this, that we can't travel as much. So again, when these things happen, pain and problems, let's look at, can I readjust the way I'm looking at that? So can I create a new approach to change my relationship with when pain and problems surface? Can I step back? Okay, and even in the face of extreme pleasure, we get overly excited. Okay, I've seen people responding to pizza sometimes, and I'm like, what? It's pizza. Okay, can I step back and learn how to find the calm in the midst of the pain? And part of it is, what about my deep breathing for a moment? You notice your mind is going down the hill, right? Into the negativity and the anxiety. You're suddenly noticing through my meditation practice, which can just be some simple reflection through the day. But if you can deepen it even better, what happens is through that ongoing practice for me, it's consistent. So I'm a little bit able to watch my mind more and more. So if I notice an imbalance suddenly thrust in my mind, like there it is, it triggers me now, deeper inhalation, deeper exhalation, which is why I started with that. Because I start shallow breathing in worry. Most people do that. You're worried, you're not breathing. You're not getting enough oxygen. Can I really focus on the breathing for a moment? And that'll suddenly help me organize my mind a little bit quickly to respond from there, from a place of deeper calm. Even if it's not the all-encompassing calm you'd like to have, you're interjecting some calm. And I'm not ending up reacting from the negative anxiety and all the doors and windows closing, as I would say. But I've interjected a little bit of calm through the deep breathing. Okay, so now instead of reacting, I'm responding from there. I'm responding from there, slowly. Okay, you can even learn, okay, how to embrace pain, okay, as well as pleasure and every nuance in between. Okay, so you end up living each moment in its fullest. And that's really where joy comes from. So learning how to spend some time with your pain in an authentic way. We need the pain to wake up. We're not masochists here. I'm not saying bring it on, but it's going to come. Problems are always arising, right? So let's use it. And we've had this really unique time. I found it actually very helpful with COVID. I feel like a major pause button got pushed for the universe, and some people didn't like that. They were completely freaked out. But a lot of meditators and a lot of people on spiritual paths, I think, found it really healthy. You can reorganize your life, reorganize your priorities. You have time. There's also people, because I'm not traveling, I ended up engaged in some house projects I've been wanting to do. for ages, but me moving around the planet and coming home for 2 weeks, I'm not going to start on a big project that I know is just going to end up being all over the house. And then I have to leave on another trip. So I've been kind of like, okay, I'm home. What can I do in this spare time? You know, not that there's a lot of spare time, but I'm going to create spare time to do these things. For instance, like a partial house clean out of my parents' house that needs to happen, and make it, you know, and ways that I can actually get the stuff to people that want it, that can use it, instead of if you're emptying a house at the last minute and everything goes out on the curb and ends up in the trash. So a lot of you have the clean out projects. I know people have talked to me about the closet, the garage, the basement, the attic, right? You can organize your stuff as well. Organize your stuff. So that kind of stuff can be really helpful. Let me go on a little bit. So in some ways, getting to the compassion, we have to suffer sometimes to get there, to understand how we suffer. So, and then change comes naturally when we open ourselves up to emotional pain. But here's a couple words from Christopher Germer. When we open up ourselves to emotional pain with uncommon kindness, meaning instead of blaming, instead of criticizing, and here's another thing, instead of trying to fix ourselves, you know, we also try to fix other people, okay? And so now I notice when friends call me or a student calls and they're airing something really negative, really awful is going on for them, or they just want me to sound up. And then after they'll say, and I'll say, okay, so do you want solutions or do you just want me to hear you? Just want me to listen right now, right? And they'll go, oh, I just need a sounding board. So great. We don't need to fix everybody, okay? And you don't even need to get into that you need to be fixed, okay? So just looking at, instead of, again, blaming, criticizing, trying to fix yourself or others, okay? Or trying to fix the whole world, okay? When things go wrong and we feel bad, okay? It's the beginning of self-acceptance. So in the beginning of the pandemic for myself, I'll give you an example, is I might have been, I didn't know how long it would go on for, nobody knew. And suddenly I canceled a whole bunch of travel. We canceled a pilgrimage I was going to lead to Nepal. We've rescheduled it in April. I'll tell you more about that later. So all this stuff was off and it was very uncertain. And also I have to support myself. So, and I have house expenses, and the fact that I'm in the house more costs me more. Okay, because normally I'm away, so all the utilities can go off and everything. And then I'm at a center that's providing my food and housing me. And suddenly I was like, oh, okay, this is different. You know, I have limited income like that. I'm not a wealthy person. So suddenly it was kind of looking at that. And so then I was a little bit like, oh, I need to do stuff right away. But I wasn't feeling that way. I was feeling lethargic. And I found myself sleeping more, you know, and getting up a little later. And so there was a little bit of a couple-week period where a few weeks where I was feeling kind of down on myself for doing that. And then I went, you know what? I normally don't sleep very much. For years, I have not slept that much. And doctors are always like, you need to sleep more for your health. And I've heard all these things about sleep. So suddenly I went like, you know what? This is okay. It's okay if I need to take a little time. There's nothing wrong with that, you know, and I could look at if I felt like it was going on for too long, then I'm going to adjust. But my self-acceptance was kind of tired right now. This thing has kind of made me tired. It's kind of jarred me. What's going to happen? So some self-acceptance of myself. This is where I am, you know, and if there's a day you do have worry and anxiety, what if you just accept that's where you are today? You know, another example I was thinking is when I ran a center in California for a number of years, and Milarepa Center, as some of you know, but at this California center, we had a bigger staff, and there were 9 to 15 people that lived on the property, staff and residents. And I was the director. So the director, they gave me a lot of power. And I would come down, we all had separate cabins, and we all worked in this one main building that had the kitchen and some offices and our meditation hall. And when I would come in, if, for instance, if the housekeeper wanted a new vacuum, she would kind of assess my mood in the morning when I walked in. What kind of mood was I in? Okay. So, and I didn't realize this, that it was all this power. I was just trying to do this stuff with everybody. And I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning anyway, and was kind of thrust into the position from my teacher. And so it was it was quite overwhelming, but we had a great community. And so I noticed that she would kind of check in. And I remember one day I was really down. And actually in the beginning, I was really down a lot of days. It was really hard work. And I remember, she came over to me and was trying to fix it. Oh, everything's going to be okay. Like she had all these reasons. It's okay. No, it's going to be fine. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? It's okay. I'm just a little sad today. Like, you don't need to fix it. And I said, you know what? Tomorrow's going to be different. So everything's changing. It's to understand the impermanent nature of everything, which is a basic Buddhist teaching, to understand the impermanence of everything. You're in a bad mood, you're worried, you're suffering from anxiety right now. Remember a time before you suffered from anxiety. Please remember that time before you felt there was a lot of depression in your mind. There was a time. Okay, and don't feel and over-identify that you're a depressed person. Okay, you just may have more depression in your mind than someone else. We all have our stuff. Some people worry more. Okay, some people are very arrogant. Some people are very fearful. Some people are very jealous. Some people are angry. It's just, we all have our different imbalances that are more prominent in our minds than others. That's all. So you work on your biggest illusion first. You go after that. But again, the acceptance that tomorrow I may feel completely differently. And usually I did. Usually I did. There's always some change up. It's your mind. There is a constant with your mind in that it's your mind. The mind's always changing. So that opens us up to countless possibilities. Countless possibilities. Think about that. I find that really adding space and allowing me to accept that I just snapped at someone, or I was driving in a really kind of rude way, and oh, well, hey, but I noticed it. And now from now on, from this rest of the ride on, I'm going to be very compassionate about my driving, or I'm going to try to get the focus off myself, or I'm going to apologize to the person the next time I see them that I was a little short with today. We can always add remedies. We can always add remedies, okay? So, but think about the blaming and the criticizing. I know the place I'm living right now is very polarized. However, I have the good fortune of living in a very good neighborhood, a very friendly neighborhood. There's all kinds of signs, political signs on everybody's front lawn, many people, and we respect all of those, regardless of how you vote and how I have some really dear neighbors I love, and they voted differently than I voted, right? We respect each other, we honor, we give people the space. Everyone's entitled to that, like that. And it's done in a very compassionate, peaceful way, not hostile. So we're just hoping we're going to stay away from hostility as the days get toward the election and for the election. But right now I find the blaming and the criticism, for me to participate in it, doesn't benefit anybody in the world. So I really keep myself away from those things. And another way to layer, and I'm going to give you a self-compassion break in a moment, but a way to layer to keep your mind away from the negative stuff. I don't know, some people I know are news addicts. Some people are very addicted to their technology in your phone and certain apps on your phone. And you're looking very heavily addicted. And this is often a lot of younger people addicted to social media, as many have told me. I'm close with my niece and nephews. I know their subsequent addictions to social media. So they tell me about it, and working with some people to try to keep them off of it. Again, we have to start slowly. You lessen per day how much you're going to look at that news app, that news site. Slowly. I've turned off all the notifications on my devices and my phone for the most part. I post on social media if I'm presenting a class somewhere to kind of help the center, whatever. I may post the gorgeous scenery I just saw outside during the autumn, something positive like that. But that's about it. I get off instead of streaming through things that make you feel less than positive, things that aren't even true. Why are you wasting your mind? Why are you wasting your time doing that? So see if you can limit and start to cut down if you're noticing that there's something in your life that's not contributing to you being positive and peaceful. Identify what it is. Can you somehow make some space from that or reason with it in a compassionate way? It may be somebody you're living with. You may be living with somebody that's driving you crazy. What do? Can you make some time for your alone time? Can you go into a room, different times of the day, close the door, have your space? Have your space. Orient how you want to come back out of the room and how you want to deal with some of the things that are coming at you from the other person. Because I know it's going to be harder as things get colder and we are driven inside. You know, can I focus on the positive qualities about that person instead of immediately pushing the buttons and attacking of the things that make me crazy? Can I find a way to compassionately discuss with them about how we'd like to cohabitate in a harmonious way? Can you have that conversation in a peaceful way? Okay, let me go on a little bit more. Here's another thing that I find helpful with mindful self-compassion is if you're noticing negative mind state comes up for you, negative mind state, what often many people I know are doing is blaming themselves. I shouldn't be thinking this. I know people say, oh, I'm a Buddhist, I shouldn't have any thoughts like that. And you're a human being. So you're a human being, and the nature, according to Tibetan Buddhism, the nature of being a human means you're going to make mistakes. That you're going to make mistakes. So I would say making mistakes is okay. I make many mistakes, have made many, okay? So I'm not trying to repeat the mistakes. I'm trying to learn from them when I make them and fold that into my practice in a gentle way. Can I learn from it so I don't have to repeat the mistake too many more times because it's painful? Like that. It may be a small personal little thing, or it may be a bigger public thing that you make a mistake. So again, just understand that's the nature of being a human. Buddha nature is perfect. So we all have a seed and a potential within us, within our minds, that is our Buddha nature. This is according to Tibetan Buddhism. And Buddha nature doesn't mean you're a Buddha yet, but it means you have the potential to develop into a Buddha. But a Buddha mind is perfect. So that's the direction I'm headed in. But right now as a human, I make mistakes. When I make mistakes and notice some negativity in my mind, when I notice I just said a really rude thing to someone or did something really rude to someone, or whatever activity is going on of negative thoughts, negative speech, negative actions of body, okay? So instead of me getting down on myself now and blaming like that, here's a word I'll interject, and I've used this in some self-compassion classes or retreats or longer programs, is the word curious, curiosity. Can you get curious about what motivated you to act that way? So Tibetan Buddhism very much asks you to analyze. And we do two main types of meditation. One is called placement meditation or stabilizing meditation. And that's what we think of as meditation. You're placing your mind on an object and you're keeping it there stably. You're keeping it there concentratedly on the object. Calm abiding, they'll call it. Calm abiding. Placing my mind on an object calmly, it stays there, it abides there. That's one type of meditation. The second type of meditation we do, as most of you know, is called analytical meditation. Analytical meditation, you're analyzing, you're investigating. And I would say, please investigate what I'm saying and apply it to your own life. You have to try it, cook it, okay? And see how does it work. If it doesn't work at all, put it to the side. And if something's useful, feel free, continue on like that. So we investigate, and what would happen is that's why I have my meditation practice every day. And now it can extend through the day. It can be several times of the day if I like, because I have that luxury and a flexible schedule like that. And what I'll do in the meditation practice is, first of all, let's say you're out driving rudely, didn't like how you were driving, went into the grocery store without any regard for anyone because I just needed to get the pickles or whatever you needed, and they didn't have it. And then I asked the shop owner, do you have any of these? And, you know, and I kind of really wanted them to go into the back room to see if they had any for me. You know, you kind of come out of this selfishness. And then they're like, no, we don't have any. When are you going to get them? I don't know. And sometimes I've heard interchanges like that at the store. And somebody kind of being a little hostile, a little rude. How come you don't have those? Come on. Like, if that's the worst of your problems, I think you're in pretty good shape. But in any event, you come back or you notice shortly after. Let's hope you notice. And you notice, you get back in your car, wasn't really how you wanted to be. Wasn't exactly the balanced space you wanted to be in. Okay, so I take it back to my cushion, my meditation practice. What happened today? Actually, and when you start peeling back the layers of the onion, and it really comes down to, wow, it was because I got this letter about the electric bill and that this is going to go up and I'm worried about this and I didn't have this job, didn't do the pilgrimage where I would have had these offerings, the da-da-da-da-da, and on, and the concern, and you realize, wow, it went all the way back there to that. Find the root cause, but if you really want to go back to the root cause, it often comes from you want to exert control. You want to have control. And what happens is we're all going to die. Are you going to have control over your mind when you're dying? So it usually comes down to those fundamental fears, and they're normal for everybody. But we're not getting down to that level. And all I'm doing, well, he didn't have the pickles. That's a problem. It's not a problem. You need to go home and you need to sit with yourself quietly, calmly, bring in the stillness, do your deep breathing, set a good motivation, and figure out why you were so off balance in the store, okay? With curiosity. I investigate. I want to know why, because I don't want to do that again. I don't want to be there again. It's not compassionate for me to continue to have imbalance in my mind. So I'm working on it. And we can only work on it in the best way we can. We're all limited as humans. Again, human nature means we're limited. So what it means is I can only do my best. And if you're showing up and trying to do your best as often as you can, what else can you do? What else can you do? So sometimes I just relax, be satisfied. Gave it my best shot, I have a motivation to try to help people. There are some days I get into bed and I think, I'm so isolated here. I don't know if I really helped that many people today because I didn't even leave the house. And if I don't have any Zoom teachings, calls, things like that, sometimes it's a little bit like being on retreat, which is also nice and also a nice way to practice. And I really like those retreative days, and I'm going to try to get more of those in the winter, in the late winter, because I want to do more strict retreat, because I do need to go in to build the resources there, to do a little bit more in-depth practice, to then come back out and have more resources from which to teach. So that retreat mode, whether you do a weekend, whether you rent a cabin at Milarepa Center, for instance, they have these beautiful cabins. And they're open. I think the cabins are being rented all year. There's a few of them that have heat. Whether you go in and spend a little time with yourself, reading some Dharma, some Buddhist books, doing some basic meditations like that. There's some basic books that can take you through that, a little course of study. There's many courses I can point you to that you get to know your mind and you start to know how you're behaving, what's unhinging you, so you can start to get the oil and put the hinges back together in a really positive, harmonious way for yourself and for others. It's possible. So use the curiosity in that way. I found it really helpful to get curious instead of getting negative. And let me give you a little insert now. This is from Neff, self-compassion break. Self-compassion break that you can intersperse in your day at any time at all. Things are not going well. You didn't like the last meeting you were on. You were supposed to present something. It didn't go well. You're really frenetic. You're tired of looking at Zoom screens. You're tired of the kids yelling outside. You're tired of your partner. You're sick of making dinner every night. Whatever your story is, okay? Or you're sick, or you're worried about getting sick. I know there's some people here with chronic illness. Did you ever think about that if you don't have chronic illness? How fortunate to have your health. How fortunate as a basis. So just gratitude alone, I bring that into every day. Gratitude with the second part of death. This could be my last day. I'm going to die soon. So I want to try to get today right. Could be my last. So I use both of those. Incredible gratitude. The blessings of my life, unbelievably countless. Fantastic. I'm not without problems. I have problems like anybody else. I'd rather count the blessings. Okay. I'd rather count the blessings twice because they're incredible, and I'd rather stay focused there. But when you can't manage, not happy, you're not having a good day. Okay. Here's your self-compassion break. Let's start there. Number 1, mindfulness. Using mindfulness. Okay. And here's what's going on. This is your self-compassion break with basic mindfulness. You're having a rough day. Maybe you say to yourself inside, in your mind, this is suffering. Just aware, I'm just being mindful. This is suffering. Or this sucks. You know, you hear a friend say something, that really sucks. I'm just being observant. This is a point of suffering right now. This is what suffering's like. You might even be like, I don't like this. Simply not working for me. Okay, you just stay there in it, naming it. Just stay there and name it. You don't need to fix it. Maybe it's not fixable. Just the way the world is. Okay? So you look, and you can have an assessment if you want to have a little assessment from there of, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama will say, ask yourself, if you like, this is a little separate off the self-compassion break, but ask yourself, is there you have a worry, you have a fear, let's analyze. Is there anything you can do about it? Realistically, ask yourself, is there anything I can do about this worry I have? Okay, I know people, and I'm sure many of you, same thing. I know people that have told me the last few months about the election, very focused on the election, and they just rail. Then, this, and he said this, and she said that, and this one, and we've got to get him out there, and we got to, okay, on and on and on. Talk, 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 talk. Talk is cheap. But the other day, I had 3 high school girlfriends. We decided to go to a garden. Great. It was wonderful to see them. One I hadn't seen in ages, and walking around a beautiful garden. Okay, I want to take advantage of the outdoor time right now before it gets too cold. Okay, so off we go, and we all have roughly the same political view. So one of them really started to get into this over and over and over. And at one point, I just wanted to say, I love her to death, and I wanted to just say, can we just, you're preaching to the choir. Can we just look at the flowers and the plants and like have a break here from, so again, people do want to get into this thing. So then I ask, is there anything I can do about it with what my own views about politics? So you can, I know people that sent postcards for the election. They're writing postcards to people about how they're going to vote to help. They're sending letters. They had letter writing parties in their houses, or they got friends organized virtually, letter writing parties on Zoom. They all wrote letters at the same time. I signed up. I was making calls for the Democrats at one point. I was making calls for a while because I'm in a swing state, but now it's all computerized. You can call Arizona. They don't have you just in your state. You call anywhere. I felt like I wanted to spend a little bit of time doing that. So I did that for a while. For me, it's more important to do my practice and things, but I wanted to give back. You can volunteer. I'm volunteering for a refugee group. Volunteering for a refugee group in Philadelphia. They have me driving diapers to new refugee families. It's all contactless. I go to a place, I open my trunk, they put the pile in, and I go off to somebody's house. I leave it at their front door, ring their bell, they open the door, I wave, everybody's happy. Then they graduated me to delivering Chromebooks. That was exciting. Okay, nothing like handing off a new computer to a family to get them and their kids connected who's just left West Africa 6 weeks ago. Amazing. Okay, so you can volunteer. There's so many organizations that need help like that. There's so many people that need help, food banks and homeless organizations that you can still, and some of it you can do in a contactless way, in a safe way. So ask yourself, is there something I can do? Figure out what you want to do. Take action in a safe way. And then there's other things I've come into where I'm like, there's nothing I can do. I've assessed it. Can't really do that. So I let it go. Practice letting it go. Practice letting it go. Like that. You do your best. Let me go back to the self-compassion break. Okay. So the first thing is you have this with mindfulness. I'm assessing this is suffering. Name it. Nothing I need to sort right now, but this is what's going on. Okay. The next thing is I'm going to look at the problem with, and I might even have with the moment of suffering is number two, what I'm going to use is 2 words, shared humanity. I'm going to bring in shared humanity. After I move from mindfulness with the suffering and the problem, shared humanity. What does that mean? Here comes your problem and your suffering. I'm acknowledging right now, suffering is a part of life. Suffering is a part of life, you know, and I might even go through, I'm sure other people feel this way, right? I might even add, I'm not alone. And you can even add, we all struggle in our lives. And you can even do this with quietly close your eyes for a moment, deepen your inhalation and exhalation. As you say, I'm not alone. I know other people feel this way. Say the words to yourself if you need to, or think them and stay there for 5 or 10 minutes. Or make it shorter if you don't have time. Perfectly okay. Here's step number 3. So we have mindfulness, shared humanity. Number 3, I'm going to add loving kindness. Loving kindness, okay? You might even want to go so far as to put your hand on your heart. Whatever type of gesture to yourself. I know people that, you know, somebody signed off today on a call I was on, and I said, visualize the hug. And she said, do you know this? Let's hug. So we just, you know, on the screen, whatever you need to do, just something for a moment, hand on your heart, say to yourself, may I be kind to myself. May I be kind to myself. Or you might want to add, what do I need to hear right now to express kindness to myself? What do I need to hear right now to express kindness to myself? Could it be, could I add some lines like, can I give myself the compassion that I need right now? May I give that to myself? Maybe it's, may I learn to accept myself as I am? Possibly, may I forgive myself? Or maybe it's, may I be strong? May I be patient? Put it into your own words. Self-compassion break. So here's part of what's also happening for us is resistance. Resistance to what is, but resistance to also how we are. And we have agendas of what we feel we need to be and accomplish. And there's a lot of doing going on, productivity. There's something also in our culture, especially in America, I'd say also in Japan, of the productivity level. You know, what people would say after a weekend when we were showing up in offices, some people are going into offices to work, but what did you do this weekend? What did you do this weekend? Like, you had to have a list. And and I know sometimes if you said nothing, people go, oh, I'm sorry. You know, why? Why? So we get into this productivity thing and I know when I've done some retreats and gone away for a few months to kind of sit, as some of my friends said, to sit on the mountaintop doing these solo retreats. And there are some people that didn't understand it in the beginning and felt it was very self-serving. I'm escaping. And for me, it's the hardest work I've ever done, to be alone with my mind, to try to dismantle some negative tendencies that are showing up again and again. To work with that motivation, because I want to become a Buddha to benefit all living beings. So it was for me to then come back into society, to have that internal retreat experience inform that time when I'm with others, so that I have more resources and a bigger space of heart, you know, more balanced mind to show up with, like that. So what happens is we're often in this resistance mode of, I need things to be a certain way. And as a result, we lose our compassion when we're insisting on things be a certain way, or this didn't turn out the way I thought. We have expectations about things. And so our pain and suffering comes from there. A really great self-compassion tool is just accepting more and more, but also being wise with social injustice. You know, I think we're wise enough to know when something is not okay, but then go back and ask yourself, is there anything I can do? You know, can I do it? And I'm going to add with compassionate wisdom, with that motivation. Then you want to go to a march for Black Lives Matter, then you go to the march with that intention in mind, right? As I mentioned to some of you before, I have gone to marches before. And I did, some of my neighbors a couple of years ago, they wanted me to go to, they're like, let's go to the Women's March in Philadelphia. And I decided to go with them. And they were neighbors I didn't know that well, but it was a great, we're taking the train, we're going to go, we made signs. Yeah, just a fun day to get to know these neighbors. We went down. I really went with this intention because there was a lot of frustration at the time and a lot of people kind of in a little bit hostile mode going down. And I went with a motivation of love love and connection. That's a positive connection is how I want to go to this march. I want to, everybody I meet, I want to have some kind of, if something we bump up against each other, a positive interaction. Okay. So then my neighbor, everything's great. Train, we're now on the march, we have our signs. And I have a very projectile voice, a loud voice, carries. So, and we were leading these chants and we had all these people behind us joining these chants somehow. And my neighbor suddenly looks over to me and she goes, oh, great, let's do this chant now. And she layers another chant in that I found was really negative. So I immediately was like, it went right in here. And I was just like, oh, I didn't feel comfortable. But then I thought, well, do I say something to her? You have sometimes a split second to, and I thought, she doesn't know me that well. She's going to think I'm a real priss and whatever. So I quickly thought, and I thought, I'm just going to be authentic. I'm just going to, I don't care what she thinks about me. I don't think it's good to do that chant. And so I just turned to her in a really kind of soft way. And I said, is it okay? I didn't really do any negative chants today. Is that okay? Can we do something else? And then I think she saw I was really not in a kind of pompous way. And she immediately got it and said, oh yeah, I so agree. You're right. You're right. We should stay positive. Great. And then, so I think it's important to speak your truth with things and figure out what is possible. Take that intention with you if you want to act, to do something that you feel is going to work for you. But don't expect to fix every problem on the planet. Expect at times you might get frustrated. But when I do, I go back to, there's my shared humanity. First of all, there's my mindfulness. This is suffering. Shared humanity. Well, other people must be frustrated too. And right now, loving kindness. This is the best I can do. I'm not going to let the frustration overwhelm me right now. You know, I'm going to be patient. May I be patient with this situation and continue the work that I'm doing. So just looking back at a few things I wanted to mention, but just want to ask if there's any questions right now, anything going on actually with your life, anything you want to ask. Let's see, I had one comment. Fantastic. I love also, Liesl, that I see you. It's wonderful. Thank you. Any questions, comments? It looks like, is Michael trying to unmute?
Yeah, he's unmuted.
Yeah, it's a hard thing for me to unmute, but yes. You know, it's interesting in terms of, you talk about the impermanence, obviously, it's a big part of what we try to study and pay attention to in time. And with COVID, and I feel like that some of my time as I get older, especially, and I'm getting older faster, I have more yesterdays than tomorrows. You know, I want to make sure, I feel like that time is being taken away from some of us. And some of the things that we would like to do with that time is being reduced. If there's a bucket of time that we have, it's slipping away.
Right.
And sometimes I retreat to that place when I feel a little frustrated with COVID and with, you know, the current state of affairs. I want to use my time more liberally, if you will. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult.
Okay, so is your time taken up because of work?
Partially, yeah, I am still working hard and very busy, but I, you know, I'd like to spend more time with my family. I would like to spend more time with Jackie doing things and possibly helping others, but it's highly restrictive with everything. And I just feel like it's being stolen from us.
Because of the pandemic.
Yes.
Okay. So again, let's go back and ask ourselves what's possible to do. So, you know, honestly, and like my neighbors in April, everybody was pretty freaked out. And then a month or 6 weeks into the pandemic, the weather got a little nicer because everybody was inside for a while. One of my neighbors sent an email around that he was going to put speakers outside, and we had a little block party. Everybody kind of at the edge of their driveways or in the street, like distance. And, you know, you know, if it's safe, but this is just a period, but also think about another way is reorienting with perspective. And this is one of the pillars of joy in the Book of Joy, from the Book of Joy. The first pillar is perspective. So one thing is just thinking about, you have a decent house to live in, a good family, and also you've got a job that you can do at home. So I just think of the people, like it was interesting when they talked about shelter in place in the beginning, if you remember those terms.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do homeless people do? Where are you going to shelter? You have no home.
Mm.
So just again, lend some perspective that, yeah, the pause button got pushed, and it's unfortunate because we want to go out and do all these other things. But at least how fortunate, I have this great situation right now. I have food, I have shelter, I have heat, I have a mind and body that's relatively okay. And because the rest of it, what can you do about it? So can you let go a little bit of, and just learning patience to get through the period. And people have been enormously creative of home projects that they're doing that they've wanted to do. I had some friends that retired during COVID, and it wasn't exactly, or some retired right at the beginning, and they didn't expect this was going to happen. They were supposed to be traveling. So again, they were like, well, I've got these home projects I've been waiting to do. Even people that decided to downsize and sell their property and move into something smaller, people that have done that during COVID. And so maybe just lend some perspective and see if that's difficult, but just thinking also about the shared humanity. This is one pandemic you can say we're all in this together, but we're all not sitting in the same basis, but we're all in it together. The whole world is going through this like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. I know it's tricky time right now. Liesel, you had your hand up. Liesel from Los Angeles.
Wait, oh, I have to unmute. Wait, am I muted?
No, you're unmuted now.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. No, I was just saying that I work with child and adolescent cancer survivors, and I did some work a few years ago looking at how we can teach mindful self-compassion as a way to cope and how to help kids sort of get back on track after treatment. And I found some really interesting research that showed that you know, we always think about self-esteem and trying to pump kids up and stuff. And when actually teaching, you know, how to be compassionate and practice loving kindness, those are much more effective at reducing distress and about sort of normalizing and sort of, you know, getting back into the new normal. So I think that, you know, young, old, you know, I think it's just such a great practice to cultivate. And it's just so easy, I think. I mean, if we remember to do it, I think that's the hard part, right? Just remembering to be self-compassionate, but just dropping in, like, you know, you were saying with the different forms of meditation. It's just, you know, it's so accessible if we remember.
Great. It's a great comment you brought up, and you do fantastic work. Liesel's a social worker, and let's talk about the difference. Self-esteem and self-compassion, they're really, really different. And we have equated them, and a lot of people I spent a lot of time working with the self-esteem role and the self-esteem recording. Let's look at self-esteem a little bit. And I would say opting out of the self-esteem game, okay? High self-esteem appears to be a consequence rather than the cause of healthy behaviors. It's a consequence. You know, at its core, self-esteem is an evaluation, okay, of our worthiness. So again, we get a judgment. It goes back into judgment of, you know, and productivity is a lot around it. So I don't find that really helps us with self-compassion, and it doesn't lend to self-compassion necessarily. So, and I know that Christopher Germer has a lot more to say about it that I'd recommend. If you haven't read his stuff, may help you. But in other words, self-esteem, it stems not only from our own self-judgments, but also perceived judgments of others. And I'll highlight the word perceived. Research shows that self-esteem is strongly influenced, these are from some of my notes, strongly influenced by perceived judgments of strangers than close friends and family. You know, and you can think about it, when your mother tells you how smart or attractive you are, how seriously do you really focus on that? But when a stranger tells you that, suddenly, you know, you're like, oh, great, right? So again, it's about, we tend to give more weight to what nameless, faceless other people think of us. Coworkers, neighbors, things like that. You're hanging on to this very thin thread of self-esteem. And given that people don't even know you, and you're basing your your value on that, okay? And it's true. And second, how well do we know these other people's opinions anyway? What's the base of them? Where do they come from? So we talk a lot. So I'd be careful to get stuck in the self-esteem thing. Is the truth is that sometimes we display good qualities, sometimes we display other qualities. Okay, sometimes we act in helpful, productive ways, and sometimes we act in harmful ways that hurt others. But we're not really defined by these qualities or behaviors. It's a kind of, we're not necessarily like a fixed thing. We're evolving. We have different things as human beings. Our actions change. Our moods go up and down at times, depending on the circumstances, depending on our, here's the word again, perspective. And we forget this. And so as a result, we've got this relentless pursuit of good, high self-esteem. Okay, this, in a sense, like this elusive holy grail, trying to find a permanent box labeled good. in which to stuff ourselves like that. So I find if you take compassion versus self-compassion doesn't try to capture and define the worth or essence of who we are. Okay, it's not a thought or a label. It's not a judgment or an evaluation. Instead, it's a way of relating, are you ready for this? To the mystery of who we are. Relating to the mystery of who we are. Rather than managing our self-image, right? So that it's always kind of a palatable self-compassion, honors the fact all human beings have strengths and weaknesses, rather than getting lost in thoughts of I'm good or bad, helpful, is we're just mindful of our present experience. Realizing that this present experience is ever changing, is impermanent, is evolving. So our successes and failures come and go. Okay, they don't really define us. They don't determine our worthiness, because I know enormously what I might consider successful people that had many failures in life. And you all know that as well, people like that. So if they're just defined by their failures, and that's not the whole picture of who they are. So again, the successes and failures are merely part of the process of being alive. Our minds may try to convince you otherwise, but our hearts know that our true value lies in the core experience of being a conscious being who feels and perceives, right? Isn't that okay on its own? This means that unlike self-esteem, self-compassion, the good feelings of self-compassion, they don't depend on being special and above average. They don't depend on meeting ideal goals. Instead, they come from caring about ourselves, fragile and imperfect, okay? Yet magnificent as we are. This is us, all of those things, okay? So rather than pitting ourselves against other people in an endless comparison game, we embrace what we share with others. You feel more connected and whole in the process, okay? And the good feelings of self-compassion, they don't go away when we mess up and things go wrong. In fact, self-compassion right away steps in if we practice it, okay? Precisely where self-esteem lets us down. So whenever we fail or feel inadequate, okay, in those moments, self-compassion can be there and say, wow, this is suffering. Everybody goes through this. And maybe right now I just need to kind of be patient with myself. You know, just accept myself for who I am, that sometimes I blow it. Like that. Self-compassion is like high self-esteem. It's associated with significantly less anxiety and depression, as well as more happiness, optimism, positive emotions. However, self-compassion offers clear advantages, I find, over self-esteem. When things go wrong, when our egos get threatened, I find self-compassion is really the thing that sustains in a more healthy way. So have a look if anybody's interested in more about that from books on self-compassion. I think it's called Self-Compassion, Kristen Neff, Christopher Germer. There's many other books like that. And just like you said, Liesl, as you can read, everyone in the chat, self-esteem can lead to self-comparison. Yep. Narcissism, of course. And those lead to suffering. Those lead to suffering. And maybe self-compassion will be saying, oh, you know, I'm comparing myself to somebody again. Like, and you just notice it. I also add humor. You know, I'll add humor. I'm noticing, some of you have heard me say this before. Here comes somebody you don't like, you know, or they're on the Zoom call and they're the guy who's always going on and on and on. I was on a call today and somebody we were all supposed to divide the time and somebody just talked the entire time. or I was in a call on my interfaith group last month, and we're trying to work, I'm doing some volunteer work with the small city outside of Philadelphia called Chester, Pennsylvania. It's a city of about 38,000, all African-American, with a another escalating gun death rate. Like all the cities in America during the pandemic, it's risen like 33%. So I found an organization making a change group, and there's a few of us helping right now, which is great. And again, it was something where I asked myself, I wanted to do something. So it took me months to find the right group, but suddenly I'm around. I'm not a good volunteer when I'm traveling. Suddenly I'm around. It took me a while. I spun my wheels for a while with different groups that March, April, May, it was wasting my time with certain things. And then I found this group, and I've known the director a few years, but through this other group, talking about how to help. And if I hear, one more white person tell me the problem with Chester is everybody's using cocaine. Okay, so again, my mind gets into like judging him. And then immediately thinking, watching my mind, the bubbles come up of negativity, right? Negativity. And then right there, I remember thinking on my Zoom call, Amy, in the back of my mind, do not unmute right now. You're just going to hang here with your mind. We're going to smile. And I'm watching my thoughts bubble up, and I could just watch the bubbles. Didn't have to over elaborate on them. Didn't have to make more of them. I watched them float off. And then I got myself rebalanced, kindness to myself. Yeah, little moment of suffering, little moment and what I'd say when we talk about delusion in Tibetan Buddhism, the word in Sanskrit is klesha. Klesha in Sanskrit, delusion, an imbalance in your mind, that's all. Anger, attachment, confusion, fear, jealousy, depression, anxiety, pride. You get it, you get the idea. Klesha. So years ago, we were at a meeting at Vajrapani, the whole community, and I was the director in this. We made a decision, and one of the residents didn't like the decision. And she's really a dear friend of mine, and she stood up across the next table and started yelling at me. Like, it just totally blew everybody away. Like, what? She just started yelling, you made this decision, and who do you think you are? And I was really surprised she never acted. Looked at her, and I didn't say anything. And all of a sudden, in the middle of her tirade, she stopped. She's a serious practitioner. She stopped and said, oh, I'm having a klesha attack. Like, she just named it. She's having an attack of delusions. That's all. And she just said, I'm sorry. Forgive me. And she sat down and we all just kind of laughed and said, it's okay. That I said I understand you have strong feelings about the decision. I'm sorry if I made the wrong decision. I'm definitely going to reconsider, So we have klesha attacks. And so with humor, sometimes that's nice to also just lay that in a little bit into your mind. Really helps lighten things up. What else? Other questions, comments? See if I see any other. Okay, let me go on a little bit while we're going to close soon. Let me just add a little something. If you're finding that sometimes you're not happy with what's going on, and I don't know if this is this going to speak to you as much? You can just nod your heads. Getting down on yourself, is that going on for anybody generally? Are you pretty feeling balanced, or some people are nodding a little bit? Because one thing I would do is, there's a big nod, okay, is just consider a little exercise again, is how would you treat a friend? How would you treat a friend? And here's where you want to go, and you can write this down if you want. I mean, this could be an exercise that you write down that you'll find Kristen Neff's website as well. I think she has something like this, but just quietly reflect to yourself. And even for you, Michael, I was going to say, if you're struggling and you go, God, I want to go out, I want to do these things, I want to have more time for the family to do these things. Now, again, think about your priorities. Excuse me, get clear about your priorities. You might have to reorient your priorities. I've done that. I realized what happened is with the COVID quarantine, I wasn't traveling. So suddenly I was like, oh, goody. Like the house projects I've wanted to do, okay? So then what happened is my brother said the magic words to me, high-speed scanner. Okay, my brother has a high-speed scanner, bless his heart, okay? I've had a project, I've wanted to do this for years. I moved from Vajrapani Institute in California, drove all my stuff across the country to Vermont, okay? And then I drove all these 30 plus years of Buddhist notebooks, all the retreats, all the courses I've been in, all the study, how many notebooks I've had of material that I'm not using, and it's taking up space, it's heavy to move, it's in boxes like that. So then I had to drive it again from Vermont to Pennsylvania. And when I got to Pennsylvania and stored it in a corner of my father's garage, I said, I'm not moving this stuff ever again. Not moving the notebooks ever again. It's going to be dealt with here. My father had an old scanner. It would have taken me about 19 years to scan everything. Forget it, not possible. I don't have the money to buy high-speed scanners are expensive. I went through my options. What are the options? I looked at the notebooks. My brother one day brings me to his house. I've got to show you my scanner. He shows me, and I said to him, wow. Like I said, I have a lot of Buddhist materials. And he said, just give it to me. No staples. He said, give it to me. If you have sections, paper clip it. Each section, he said, will be a new file. Bring me a memory stick and we'll put it on that. It's all scanned now. It's almost all done. But the thing is, I took all the sections. I had to go through all these notebooks. It took me a while to do it, ripping out pages of notebooks, putting things together. So each thing I had to look through the notes, obviously, but now it's recategorized in my computer so I can use it by topic, by the topic or the retreat or whatever I'm using it for, like that. So again, it took me a while. And what happened is I got into the middle of it and suddenly I went, oh my God, I need to study and I've got these other teachings coming up and my practice is more important and it's taking too much time. So I slowed it down for a month. Couldn't fit, so slowly make your priorities. If you're not spending enough time with your family, you want to spend more time, figure out a way that you reasonably can do it, realistically can do it. It's possible. Be wise with yourself, like that. So what I was going to say, one last thing, is how would you treat a friend? So think about a time when a close friend brings a problem to you. They're struggling. They're struggling, okay? What would you say to them? Notice what you say to them and how you talk to them. Notice the tone you use, the softness of your words, the gentleness of your voice, right? And you might even jot this down if you ever want to do this exercise. Thank you, Michelle. She listed the Kristen Neff's website. You can find it there. I'm sure this is there. And then notice, okay, the next thing, when you have that kind of problem, when you feel bad about yourself, a problem's coming up that's similar, how do you respond to those situations? And then notice the difference. What factors or fears come into play that lead you to treat yourself and others so differently? How we're harder on ourselves, right? And I'm so kind to my friend taking all this care and, and then I say it and I go, well, you're stupid, like that. Write down kind of what is prompting me to be so hard on myself? Maybe you need the self-compassion break. And maybe you need to consider treating yourself like a good friend and see what happens.
Amy, I wonder, this is Jackie. I wonder if women in particular need to look at what you're saying. And just because this is funny, I've actually had this conversation with a lot of my women friends as we're getting older. The self-esteem versus self-compassion. Because, and particularly my age group, I don't know if younger women are feeling the same way, but my generation, we were sort of on the cusp of doing it all, but not really able to do it all. Trying to be career women, but also, doing a majority of the home care work and stuff. And, like some of us got fried, and we've lost our way ourself in a way, we feel like. And I've had this conversation with 3 or 4 other women where you feel like in a way you've lost yourself. And some of that is based on what you said, self-esteem. We lost ourselves maybe in the eyes of society because we didn't really become the CEO of the company because the family issues the burdens were too heavy. And so we kind of beat ourselves up.
Yes.
Why didn't I become the CEO? And then it becomes really hard because you see young women actually becoming CEOs, whereas we didn't quite get there. You know what I mean? We let a lot of it go just because you couldn't handle it all. And
Yes.
it sort of falls into what you're saying, the self-esteem versus the self-compassion.
Sure. I mean, the one thing I would mention about that, Jackie, thank you for saying that. And also I see Fred. Fred, are you with? I see Fred there, Fred Ficara. It looks almost like Martha and Larry, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it's lovely to see you, some old friends. What I would say is, and I'm so glad to see the guys there as well. Please, I don't mean this in a negative way, but we're in my favorite season, the fall of the patriarchy. So we're living in a patriarchy, let's face it. And women have had some great strides in the 60s and 70s, and certainly way before that with getting the chance to vote. But this is our culture and our societies. Tibetan Buddhism is no different. We're in the middle of a monastic conference right now, and there's been a session on that. And so I think we have to be realistic that women never got to do it all. They never got it all because they ended up having to do all the homework as well as being the CEO, or they ended up not having a family. So we never really got it all. And I don't think it's possible until there's a shift in male consciousness. It happens with some men. I think some men are incredibly conscious and incredibly supportive, but many that are close friends of mine that I think are pretty conscious about other things still don't get it. It's the same way. I cannot understand what it's like to be a person of color because I'm white. I'm in white skin. I really will not ever be able to fully understand that. So I'm not faulting men. I'm just saying we all have to wake up together, and men can't expect. I've had some men say to me, oh, well, tell me what I need to do. No, you're going to have to learn yourself the way my friends of color have told me. You're going to have to learn about diversity and about racial inequality yourself. I'll recommend some books to you, but I'm not going to do the work for you. And I respect that. So I think that is part of the problem. And we just really have to consider to keep our hearts and minds open in the face of that, and then slowly work to try to improve ourselves, but try to also, when it's appropriate, to give somebody else a nudge and remind them when a certain term isn't appropriate or a certain behavior is not appropriate, and try to have those harmonious dialogues with people, I think are really, really important. We do the best we can. There's some other sites that have been listed here in the chat you can look at. Let me just read one other. It's hard for me to look at the private messages right now while I'm teaching. Lovely to see you as well. Thank you, Pam. Lovely to see you. So what I wanted to mention in closing, and then we're going to do a dedication. I'm going to just put down my website if it's helpful. And on my website, it's connected to a YouTube channel, amymiller.com. So there's a lot of teachings on there that my friend Anna Paula has put on. They're categorized by topic if it's helpful for you. Some are longer retreats, some are just one-off teachings. And if it's possible, Michelle, I can use the recording later. We can tell you who to send it to. That would be great. If it's helpful for people, great, thank you. And there's a lot of other things on there that might be helpful. There's audios and videos of things. So I'm also leading a pilgrimage to a remote retreat center in the Mount Everest region of Nepal. We have rescheduled the postponed dates from this year to April 26th to May 14th, 2021, next spring. I don't know if it will be possible to go, but we do have the itinerary all set. The tour coordinator wanted to set some dates for next year. So we're all about safety and health. So we're gonna constantly be monitoring to see whether it's possible. We have a wonderful group of people signed up, but there is still space available. The itineraries on the website and all the information like that, if you're interested. So I just like to close with a dedication, please consider whatever merit, whatever positive energy we've created from our time together, can we direct it into our keeping our hearts and minds open as much as possible, especially if you find yourself in a divisive situation. Can you choose kindness as much as possible? And can you also continue on your path, and if it's possible, on a path to full awakening, as then you're unlimited and benefiting all living beings. I'd like to dedicate to all those with COVID to be healed instantly, and for the virus to disappear and all other illnesses on the planet immediately. And may we also elect more enlightened leadership in November as soon as possible. May it be a peaceful transition, a peaceful time if possible. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. It's lovely to see so many old friends and new friends.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.
And please stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks, Venerable.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Dawn.
Can you hear
you.
me? Fred here.
Michael Scanlon,
Oh my God.
amazing. Show your face. It's been ages. Lovely to see all of you.
I
That
don't
I hope
quite
you
know how to get in on the conversation.
You gotta unmute yourself.
I did.
We can hear you, Fred.
How are you
can
doing?
hear me.
Fred, I hear you.
Oh, loud and clear?
Fred, where are you?
In Montpelier.
Who are you sitting with?
I'm sitting with my friends Gail and Tim. And
Lovely.
they're enjoying that we're all finding some real value here. It's good to see you.
Oh, it's wonderful to see you. Are you going to Thailand?
Not this year.
Not this year. Okay, but you've got a good place in Montpelier.
Very good. I'll be here for a while.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad you're well. Beth, I hope you're doing well. Mike Scanlon,
Mike Scanlon.
how are you doing? If you can unmute.
Where's Mike?
Elizabeth, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Great to see you here.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Thanks for joining. Anyway, I wish you all really well. It's been lovely to see all of you. Thank you so much for joining. Michael and Jackie, stay in touch. It's lovely to see you guys. Congratulations on being grandparents.
Oh my goodness.
And I'll let Michelle and Dawn go. Thank you so much for hosting. Please give Harry a big hug from me and to tell him to give Devin a hug. And of course, a little, you know what, for Shannon. Hey, Harry.
Hi.
I'd love to talk with you. Give me a call.
Yes, we'll catch up soon.
Okay, wonderful.
Cool.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Good night. Thanks, everyone.
Night.